the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Large Glass.
Hello.
I'm Todd.
I'm Terri.
And this week we are not on the Millennium Falcon.
We are not.
I am no longer Han Solo.
No, and I'm no longer Princess Leia.
So sorry about that. We hate to disappoint. There's Mom. Hi.
Hello.
Glad someone's here. Nice to see you. So we have a lot going on.
We do.
Yeah.
All good things.
All good things. Mm-hmm. We have we have major birthdays today.
Yes, it's a big birthday week, which I'm really excited about because I always feel like there's no time to celebrate and remind yourself of other artists rather than their birthdays. It's like a big...
Yeah, and you do a really good job of doing the Instagram where, you're putting up these birthdays on a regular basis and people are actually responding really positively.
Yeah.
So, I kind of really like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw I Hate Username 67's comment today.
I did.
If you want to know what we're talking about, you have to got to go follow our Instagram and see. Hey Ben, how's it going? Nice to see you.
Hey,
glad you're here. So go follow our Instagram and you'll see what I Hate Username 67 said about Salvador Dali.
Yes. Well, I have to say I like to find things that you don't normally associate with the artist, and I was not familiar with that painting at all.
I was not either, and I was actually really pleased to see that there was something really outside the realm of the really wonky surrealism that Dali is so known for.
Yeah, it looked like a nice photorealistic sort of image, but alas.
There's Dave. Hi, Dave. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, besides, let's drink.
Yes.
Yeah, let's drink.
Drinking.
And you're pre-gaming. So our artist tonight hails from Georgia as well as New York. Mm-hmm. So we have beers from both places. Mm-hmm. Tonight, Terri is drinking Southern Tier Live Session, which is...
Because we're in a
live session.
Yeah.
And she's, of course, pre-gamed, so the beer is open.
Yes.
That's her thing.
Where is Southern Tier from?
Southern Tier is from New York. Okay. It is a New York brewery.
They make a pumpkin ale that's really good at Halloween time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not a pumpkin ale fan, but I would try it.
This one's aged in this vanilla bourbon cask.
I'd be down with that.
Thing. It's really delicious, and I look forward to that every year.
I would be down with that. There's Splonk16, our moderator.
Hello.
How's it going? Nice to see you. And I am drinking the Terrapin High and Hazy IPA. Now, of course, the label's all crazy because we've got a green screen, so things get... But this is really a very cool can, and it's a hazy IPA, which I particularly do like, although... Yeah, I know, right? Look at the color of that beer. Mm-hmm. And then, when you see this can, like look at the way the can just freaks out with the green screen, right?
It's trippy.
Ah, yes, John Park. John, I will always use your screen name, not your real name. So John Park. When I say John Park, it's not that I don't know your actual name. I just don't like to reveal that on screen necessarily. But here is to episode 37.
Okay.
You're like,
I'm starting to lose track.
But we're closing in on...
Awesome. I actually like being like, what? Because we have a lot behind us.
We do.
So that's a good thing.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers to all of you. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Yummy. So this one is, you like John Park. Okay, good. Good. That works. Oftentimes I associate IPAs with headaches because an IPA, while I love the weight, the body, the hoppiness, the fruitiness in this case, there's like a real kind of grapefruity kind of flavor in here, the unfiltered haziness, all good things, except it all spells Advil because you're going to need it. Oh. But for what it's worth.
What's the percentage on that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see. But Memory Vessel is here. Cheers. And Pumpkin Audrey is here.
Hello,
hi, everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
What you all drinking?
Yeah, tell us what you're drinking in the chat.
5.8%.
Oh, that's fine.
What's live session? Let's take a
Live
look
session's
for.
probably about the same, I'm going to guess.
Okay. Well, I'll look, but you keep...
It's right here. It's 5.5.
5.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there's Amanda Toolin, another moderator, and Jess Park. Hi. Good.
hello.
Good. The crowd is forming.
starting
The
to
crowd
come
is
in,
forming.
yes.
So, let's start with thanking a supporter.
Yes.
Like we do, right? Because I
Yes.
really like this. And last week we started this tradition. Oh no, something's coming in. See, sometimes
That's a big teaser.
That's a
so
teaser. That's
we
not
can't
supposed
wait
to be there
tell you
till
about
later.
That one. So
Later that
we'll
comes
just
in.
Wait. Yeah.
All right, so tonight, our featured thanks, our thank you goes to my mom. We want to thank one of our followers or supporters every week.
Yes.
And last week we thanked Ben Hagenbush.
Yes.
And this week we're thanking Mom because you've been here since the beginning.
He also has been here for every episode.
And I just can't go past, more than one or two of these
and
without.
You gotta thank your mom.
Right. So, Mom,
You
thanks
know?
for being a firm
Yes.
supporter. You probably have the most viewer loyalty points of any person out there. So thank you for that. All right. So let's move on. Should we do a little news?
We can do a little bit of news. Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Don't have much to do in news this week simply because we have so many birthdays to go over. So I wanted to make the news thing short. However, the news thing I think is really, really exciting.
Yes.
Really exciting. You're welcome, Mom.
Yes.
Lottery winning mom.
Lottery
yeah.
winning mom.
Mom always winning all the prizes.
This week it was rigged in her favor. We did, pick her.
We did
but
pick her,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So in our news segment this week, we have something really cool to talk about, and that is next week's show. And next week's show, we're going to have another live in the studio artist duo that call themselves Double Parlor. And we love Double Parlor. They're this awesome sculptor duo that make these really, really strange and humorous creatures. They've been featured in High Fructose Magazine. They've shown at Jonathan Levine, depending on how you want to pronounce that, gallery in New York. So we're super excited to have them
We are
on.
ridiculously excited.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And we collect their work.
Yeah.
So, we're thrilled. And so they're going to be visiting with us. So definitely join us next week. And we're going to get a chance to talk to them.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that goes. But that's our news for tonight. So,
Yeah.
not too much.
Big news.
I think it's very big news.
I think it's really big news. Even when you Google them, there's not a lot of material out there. So I'm excited that we're going to be adding some material for people to see from now on.
Right. When you Google them, right, you'll find their website, of course, where they will regularly and almost not regularly, but they have these sculpture drops where they're like on Instagram, they'll say, hey, this Friday at 12, we're dropping a bunch of sculptures. They sell out like that.
Immediately.
Almost
an hour.
immediately.
Yeah.
And then, if you go looking for interviews with them or stories about them, they're kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
So, hey, there's Glenn Lavertu hanging out on Facebook saying cool. We won't tell everybody what your actual name is in Twitch because you come in under two different ones. But we did appreciate your comment on Instagram today about Salvador Dali. So nice job on that one.
Okay.
All right. So want to do birthdays?
Let's do the birthday.
That's gonna be all you.
Oh boy.
So, and that is not where we wanted to start. We wanted to start here
With this guy.
with this dude.
Yes.
And there's Ron McKinnon. How's it going, Ron? Nice to see you.
Ron. Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
It's his birthday today. He was born in 1904. You all know him, Spanish surrealist. His technical skill is amazing to behold, but he was really the father, the grand master of surrealism in that genre, really.
I have a few I like that are not him.
I
but
don't know. I think he is the poster child for surrealism.
That I'll give you.
Yeah.
That I will give you. I will give you that one.
Yeah.
All right. So who do we have next? Who's this
The
guy?
next one we have is Jean-Léon Jerome,
Yes.
and he was born on this day in 1824. He is a French painter who mostly is known for his Orientalist depictions of Greek mythology and Middle Eastern culture. He's often painting these scenes with belly dancers or a lot of artists' interaction with their sculptors, like Pygmalion and falling in love with their artworks and art pieces. So I think of him as a very frilly kind of foo-foo painter, which I love that. That's almost like the Waterhouse kind of thing. To me, it's very frilly. But anyway, it's his birthday too.
Okay.
1824.
Oh, yeah. This guy.
Frank Stella.
I love the shot of him with the cigar.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Frank Stella was born on May 12th in 1936. He's an American painter, sculptor, printmaker, minimalist, post-painterly abstractionist. So he's got a birthday coming up tomorrow.
All right. And moving on. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? This week is chock full of so many awesome people.
Why don't you introduce them?
All right, I'll introduce him. This is Joseph Beuys. And Joseph Beuys, to me, when I was like sort of in, young and in college, he just totally fascinated me. And, I think he was one of the ultimate people when it came to this sort of infusion of art and life and performance and sculpture and all these things coming together, even if he might have been called out as a fraud and didn't actually crash land his plane during World War II and almost die surviving in the wilderness.
I don't think I knew that story.
Oh, there's just, there's.
Okay.
So a lot of his sculpture depicts this narrative that he carries with him about this event where he crashed in World War II and basically, survived behind enemy lines. But then it was found out later that might not have in fact happened. It might have been part of his artistic sort of persona, so on and so forth. But, Beuys to me has always been a really interesting character, and I love him. And plus there's a Volkswagen van in this video, in this image. So, what's not to like? But anyway, Beuys, he was what, the 12th?
1921. He was also born on May 12th.
May 12th.
German artist, theorist, founder of the Fluxus arts movement.
Oh, and Glenn says there's an amazing Stella show up at the Aldrich in Connecticut.
Oh, good to know.
Cool.
There's so many good shows right now.
Yeah, I know. We got to go on the road.
And actually, we should have had that in our news. Because we can go on the road now.
Well, we can, but we're not going to put that in the news just yet. We have a large glass surprise that we're sort of we're going to put that in the news next week.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just kind of didn't want to do too much at once.
Too much.
But you know what we could really use? She's going to get very mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. Okay. What we could really use is a little bit of reassurance around the notion of going on the road. Last week, with the 100 in Art Tour, it was an enormous amount of work, enormous. Packing up all this gear to go to the museum Friday night was a lot, but it was great fun. And we had a lot of viewers, and we felt like we did something really important. Then we did it again on Saturday, and then we tried to do it again on Sunday. And by the time Sunday afternoon rolled around, we both wanted to just fall asleep. However, I think there is some worth here. And I think we both need to hear from you that this might actually be worth doing. So when it comes time for us to go on the road again, we're going to need some we need a cheering section, I think, a little bit to keep us going. Or maybe come with us, right? You could come with us. Anyway, we still have more birthdays.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Oh, my God.
This guy.
This man.
This guy.
This man is like...
We're going to do a show on him sometime. We were going to do a show on him.
We were going to do him this month because his birthday is this month.
His birthday is this month.
But we just didn't have the room. And
yeah.
How do you not have the room for David Byrne?
I know. So David Byrne, his birthday is on the 14th of May. 1952, Scottish-American singer, actor,
lead singer
artist,
of the Talking Heads.
Lead singer of the Talking Heads.
RISD alum.
We saw American Utopia last year. That was the last concert that we went to before the pandemic. Sat all the way in the last row. Got a great view, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
And he's awesome. I love what he does. He's so fantastic.
Honorary Micah grad, yes. Okay, so Memory Vessel and I are tied there because we got RISD and Micah going on here. And this guy, I got to tell you, when he wanted to pilot American Utopia, or not pilot, but I should say just sort of test it out, test the waters for this kind of let's call it a concert, right? But it's really a performance. But it's kind of like taking the songs of the Talking Heads and putting them into a performance that is much more choreographed, much more sort of built around showmanship. And he piloted this a few years back around, I'm going to say 2010, maybe 2009. I think it was 2009 to be exact. And I saw this fantastic show of his at the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in this tiny little room. There were like 600 of us in this tiny room. And I was like 3 rows back, and he was right there. And it felt like a private show. And then you got me the tickets to see this, and my head almost came off.
Yeah.
So if this reopens and you can go see American Utopia, it is absolutely,
it's so good.
absolutely the best show musically I've ever seen.
People were up on their feet the whole time. He really involved the audience in his stuff. He's so phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the percussion and the choreography and the lighting, it was just such a feast for the eyes.
908-252-9363 says, seen him at the Armory a few times. Yeah, no, he is just tremendous.
He really is.
Just tremendous.
So,
all right.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, David.
We love you.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Another fantastic
yes.
icon.
He's going to be 91 this week.
He's still going.
He's still going.
I love it.
Jasper Johns. So he was born on the 15th of May in 1930, going to be 91, American painter, sculptor, printmaker. We probably know him best for the Flag series and some of his other pieces.
Yeah, JJ definitely rocks. Absolutely. Ben saying same as it ever was, to go back to a little Talking Heads there for a second. But yeah, Jasper Johns is like, I saw a retrospective of his at I think it was MoMA, probably in 2001, maybe it was 90. It was in the late 90s. Anyway, fantastic show. Yeah. Fantastic show.
Yeah. So happy birthday, 91.
Happy birthday, Jasper Johns. And one final birthday.
One more. This is Laura Wheeler Waring. She was born in 1887, May 16th. American artist and educator. She primarily painted African-American portraits during the Harlem Renaissance of notable figures.
Yes, and I picked this landscape.
Some landscapes.
Yeah, because it was just sort of outside the norm for her, and I thought this is a really interesting turn for her. So I just grabbed this one to throw in there for that. But so what was it, 7 birthdays for this week?
A lot of birthdays.
So,
a lot of birthdays.
And a very, very good lineup.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so enough of that.
Enough of that.
So we got a couple of exciting things to talk about just in terms of supporting us. Now, we've talked before about one way to support us in making this show is if you're an artist and you wanted to donate a piece of your work. So, we had Glenn Lavertu who donated a piece of his work that we gave away on the show. And it was an incentive for people to either follow or subscribe or whatever the case may be. So we have an artist who has decided to donate a painting of hers, and I am so excited about that. So
it's beautiful.
We're going to do a giveaway.
Her work is stunning.
It really is.
It really is, and I love where she goes. She looks at everyday neighborhoods and she paints them. And sometimes, like when I'm walking around the neighborhood, I don't quite I like to get out in nature and marvel at the clouds and the skies and everything. She finds beauty in garages and cookie cutter houses,
right? And these older suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And she's a master at rendering light and sources of light on these subjects. It's absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So Susan Stillman is going to be donating a painting to us for this giveaway. Now, we don't have it yet. She's in the middle of a whole flurry of activity, including the end of the semester and school, and then a big family reunion that she's going to. So we're excited for this, but we don't have the exact image yet, so I put these other images of hers up to sort of talk about this. If you'd like to visit her website, it's susan_stillman_fineart.com, and you can also find her on Instagram at Susan_Stillman_art. So we are really excited for that. Yeah. So we're going to give that away at 200 followers.
Memory Vessel says, love the buttery strokes.
Oh yeah, no, I know. She's got it. She's totally got it.
Yeah.
Now, also, just so you know, we have also landed on Patreon. So we're available on Patreon if you would like to support us, through what would typically be like a Twitch subscription, which we know many of you are, and we really appreciate that. Patreon is, I think, a little bit better of a resource. They don't take such a large cut of what you're donating to us. Yes, they do that. Twitch does that. Patreon is very small. And we're also creating a community in Patreon around our Discord server. So it's going to be a chat community that you get invited to. It's a community that I monitor. So if you're in there and you type something in and you're like, hey, I'm over at the MoMA, check this out, and you want to throw a picture up there, I'll see it. Terri will see it. So we're also going to be doing private, intimate shows on Discord for some of our Discord followers 4 times a year. So it'll be like a private session. We'll jump on there. We'll have a topic to talk about. So by supporting us through Patreon, there are added benefits, a little bit better than the Twitch ones, which are good, but we think this is better. So that is definitely one way to get to us. If you want to get to us, it's at patreon.com/thelargeglass, separated by underscores. You can also go to the About tab underneath our Twitch stream right now and see the Patreon link there. So thank you all for that. We appreciate that. Oh my God, that was a lot to talk about.
That was a lot to talk about.
All right, let's go back to us for a second before we move on to our artist.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about it? You want to talk about our artist tonight?
I would love to talk about our artist tonight.
You're like, please shut up, honey, and let's talk about the artist. People are waiting to see the artist. Okay.
Okay.
I'll pop over to that, and you can start us off. Do you want to start us?
I can start us.
All right. So tonight we have Benny Andrews.
Yes.
Go.
Benny Andrews. So, he was born November 13th, 1930. He was born in Plainview, Georgia. Plainview, right there in Plainview. Anyway, he's an artist, activist, educator. He was known for his mostly expressionistic work and portraits. His resume is, he went to the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, but going back a little bit, when he grew up in Georgia, he was the son of sharecroppers, and they didn't have a lot of money. He was one of 10 kids, so big family. And the sharecropper way of life, they just didn't have the means for education. They thought it was a little bit frivolous. They were more work-oriented.
Right.
So school was not a big priority, but his parents wanted him to be educated. So he did go to, I believe, a 2-room schoolhouse or a 1-room schoolhouse for his elementary years. And then whenever he wasn't working, for about 5 months of the year, the parents would keep trying to send him to school so that he would become educated. His father was a self-taught artist as well. His name was George Andrews, and when Benny had grown up, there was a retrospective of his father's work at the Morris Museum of Art.
In New Jersey?
I don't believe it was New Jersey. Forgive me, I don't know where it was.
Well,
I'll find out for you.
I don't know the Morris Museum, so
Yes,
other than the
but
one that's in
what
New
it
Jersey.
said. And his parents really strongly emphasized when he was growing up education, religion, and freedom of expression.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, first of all, the main reason we picked Benny Andrews tonight, not other than the fact that we love his work, is the fact that his activism and his role as an educator. We feel like we're in lockstep with that. Like we really feel like what he was about in sort of spreading the word about art is similar to what we love to do, and so we felt like we were really tuned in to that. Number one, but beyond that, we of course love his paintings. And I normally in a given show, when we're talking about an artist, I load like maybe 20 images, and then we have a video. I've got probably 40 images of his work tonight because there's just so much to show.
So much.
And it's really, really good stuff, which is why I'm pushing through it.
Yep. Well, his biography is fairly interesting too. So he grew up going to school. He did graduate. He was the first one to graduate from high school in his family. And what he did, he won a 2-year scholarship related to 4-H work. And he went to Fort Valley State College. didn't have a fantastic art program, and he really struggled academically. So when the scholarship was exhausted, he actually enlisted in the military, and he went into the U.S. Air Force. His grades had also declined, and he dropped out. He just academically, he was struggling quite a bit. But anyway, he joined the U.S. Air Force. He trained in Texas. He became a staff sergeant, was deployed to Korea during the Korean War, stayed the whole length of it, had an honorable discharge. During that time, he sent money home to his family. That's what most of his brothers did. They kind of took turns. When one was up at that age and they were just starting out, they were the ones who sent the money home. Then they came home and started a job.
It's like a
and then
rotation.
The next brother came and sent money home.
Yeah.
And he ended up using the GI Bill to get his BFA from the School of the Art Institute in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that they were kind of rotating through these kids that were sending money home to keep the family going. Now, he came home and went to school on the GI Bill, right?
Yes.
And that was at the Art Institute of Chicago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then after Chicago, he immediately moved to New York, correct? Where he lived out the rest of his life?
Now, when he was going to school in Chicago, he did have an important mentor and instructor by the name of Boris Margot, who he keeps talking about throughout his career and life and interviews. This gentleman really pushed him. Benny seemed to find his niche early in what he was doing. Mm-hmm. He was doing these collaged paintings. And Mr. Margot, Professor Margot, really pushed him to continue that route where he would juxtapose fabrics, and he always let the fabrics be what they initially were, and he would put them in his work. So he really encouraged him to pursue those collage techniques in painting. During the time he was in college, too, he also got around the Chicago music scene, and he would illustrate in jazz clubs and bars and sell his illustrations. He designed for record covers and labels and stuff like that. And he had a side gig doing that.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Monster Fart, thank you for the follow. That's awesome. And I love the name. It's sort of like I always like to acknowledge people when they follow. And then sometimes I look at the names and I'm like, whoa, I got to say that? That's cool.
Yeah.
So I love that the range of work. The range of work around Benny's sort of subject matter is really quite diverse. You know, we see a body of portraits. We see a body of like these sort of narrative sort of landscapes that have people in place, like the one we're seeing now on the screen. We see these sort of larger versions of this, like some of the Harlem scenes, right? The drawings are an altogether different thing, right? Which we'll see later. But you know, his range of style and mark making is really quite brilliant.
It is. And actually, if you have the chance, if you go on the www.bennyandrews.com and his estate,
it's the estate
they
site,
have the whole portfolio with his sketchbooks, his paintings, mixed media, etc. I love that you're on this painting right now. I watched two women talk about this painting for like 20 minutes the other day, and it's interesting because we were also talking about Jasper John. So you have this image of the flag here, and they were just speaking about it. That, well, maybe we could talk about that in a little while because it's something to talk about.
Okay.
So
I think I like the connections between some of his political subject matter and then a more subtle approach to some of his portraiture, and how I feel like some of that, I feel like it's always there, right? But I think it plays out much more directly in certain pictures that he makes and much less in others. And I love sort of just subtly sensing it in some of them.
Well, the other thing is like interpretation in his paintings, and some of the research I was doing, the interpretation was one of the most interesting elements, because almost always the viewers that were interpreting it, and they had a couple people. They had Deborah Roberts talking about one of his paintings. They had these other two women talking about Flag Day, which was the previous portrait. And the different interpretations really led to some interesting discussion. Like this one is Flag Day. It's about 53.3 inches by 40.6 inches. It was created in 1966. Historically, what was happening?
Yeah. Context.
The context. You had Jasper Johns, who was painting flags at the same time in the 1950s. So they think that might have influenced Benny Andrews when he did paint this. But at the same time, you had the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voter Rights Act of 1965, dismantling of Jim Crow laws, and then you see this black figure emerging from the folds of the flag. And they had all kinds of different interpretations, and they were all fascinating because the one woman thought that he was emerging from these bars or he was trying to escape out of the flag, and the other woman thought no, he's trying to be embraced by the flag. And it was and I feel like a lot of his paintings have similar qualities. There's a lot of room to interpret,
and there's no reason why they can't both have those things, especially
absolutely.
Someone who came out of the military and sort of supported the country, and probably of course there's a whole side subject about how the poor and minorities tend to serve in the military and do the fighting for this country, and then are, of course, not represented by this country as well as they should, deserve to be because of the time that they serve. But there is this, I like that two-way street that this kind of takes, and I kind of think it could take both. But Glenn is saying a flag show would be interesting.
It would be interesting. That's a good idea.
I like that, Glenn.
Yeah,
you
I
could
like
actually,
that too.
Glenn, I think you could be in that show actually with some of the work you're doing. I mean, I know they're not flags per se, but I think that could actually work. So let's kind of keep rolling through.
So anyway, so he graduated from college. We'll go chronologically because sometimes that's the best way to pick up. 1958, he's in New York City. He met his wife around that time, had some kids. He worked in the Christmas card division of the Met, and that's when he started gaining some recognition in the art world. In 1960, he had his first solo show at the Forum Gallery. He won some fellowships during that time. He kept painting, but it was really around 1970. No More Games was his pivotal piece, which we're going to get to in a little bit.
I'm not sure where that lines up in here. It's here somewhere.
It's here
I don't want to
somewhere.
race ahead to it, but yeah.
Yep.
No More Games was the piece that kind of pushed him forward.
In 1966, he did start teaching, and he had a 30-year career in education. That was one of the big things.
Try doing that these days.
Yes. He taught at the New School for Social Research, also at the Jewish Community Center in Bayonne and the Arts Institute in the Bronx. 1968 through 1997, he was over at Queens College. He started or was an integral part of the SEEK program, which provided academic support for underserved populations. But he also started developing art education for the prison system. And that was at the Manhattan Detention Complex. His model actually became a model that was used all throughout the country to initiate arts education into reform.
Right.
And he was recognized throughout his career in developing other programs as well. Like he worked with the kids after Hurricane Katrina.
This is what I love about this guy.
He was all over the place.
Yeah.
He was very giving artist. We should talk about at some point, one thing that's really important to mention is his role as the co-founder of the Black Emergency Cultural Coalition. And this started when he was a new artist in New York, and he was trying to get gallery shows in the beginning. And he noticed that it was very hard for Black people to get shows.
Sure.
He'd go into a gallery and try to promote his work, and the one gallery owner is like, "Oh, it won't sell," and like she really dismissed it. And he's like, "This isn't right. There's all these artists that aren't getting recognized."
And he also noticed that there were Black artists that were in the gallery, but they were in the back.
They were in the back.
And they weren't even put out, for even group shows. They weren't put out for. And that was when he actually asked about this. He's like, "Well, why aren't you showing these people?" And the gallery owner was just like, "They won't sell."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Glenn asked, did he have any students who became well known? That is a good
That is a good
question.
question. I'm not quite sure. He was married. His second wife was also a teacher.
Yeah, Glenn, his second wife actually had some students that became well known. One of them's you and one of them's me. Because he was married to Neen Humphrey until he died. So Neen Humphrey was both Glenn's and my first year grad advisor alongside of Tom Butter. So, and I didn't know that. Like, I'm going through this guy's body of work and all of a sudden I see this portrait of Neen Humphrey, the artist's wife. And I was like, no kidding. I had no idea she was married to him. It's brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, Glenn's like, oh, geez, see, you didn't even know. We didn't know this.
Yeah.
Like, he was married to her and he was still alive when we were in grad school. She was connected to this guy. Like, I would have loved to have met him. She kept him to herself. 908-252-9363 is saying, I feel you, Todd. I think that's about the comment about working as a teacher for 30 years. Yeah. Sorry, keep going. I'm totally running over you here with my humor.
I think I've given a pretty good background there.
I love this guy's use of really, really hardcore collage in these paintings.
So that's the other thing. He would create these surfaces that were a challenge. And actually, I think of when we were talking to Jim Osmond a couple weeks ago, months ago, I don't even know.
It was at least 2 months ago.
Right, and he would say he would create problems and then try to solve them.
Right.
And that's kind of how...
That's a great reference.
That's kind of how Benny Andrews worked. He would create these textures that he struggled with, which became metaphorical kind of for his life. And, you know, even when they're wearing clothes, I mean, sometimes they were truly wearing clothes. Like, he would take scraps of his shirt or a shirt and juxtapose them into the image so that they were the shirt. Like, he allowed the fabric to be what it was.
But it would oftentimes like be oriented in a different way. So there's one piece with a pocket that sort of faces in this direction, which I kind of like that sort of odd placement.
I like that too.
But this one, John Park says, I love Jim. Yeah, we everybody loves Jim. I mean, you cannot not love Jim. This one, to take physical shipyard rope and glue it into a painting like that, and then magically, and I cannot figure out for the life of me how this happens, you got a dimensional object sitting on top of that canvas, glued to the top of that canvas, and somehow that figure comes forward from that space.
In the foreground, even though the textural qualities aren't there, because the rope you would think would come forward.
Right. How does he do that? Like that, I mean, I know how he does it, but the challenge there is not something, you know, the typical painter would want to sort of grapple with. That's a tough problem right there. So, you know, I love this piece. I love this piece. It's like, I love that sort of the grittiness of that towel over his head.
I love the grittiness. Yeah.
That sort of the same with the texture that's sort of present in the glove, right, and how it really comes forward. But yeah,
we got a couple comments there. 908-252. I feel like I should be singing your phone number for some reason.
8675309. Brilliance with shadow details. Yeah. I love that. And you know, that shadow of the rope is kind of hanging out in there. And he's also got a really good drop shadow around that presence of that towel, right? So literal and implied shadow in this piece, both kind of playing a role. Ben says it's like the primitive and realism combined. Yeah, that's dead on. So moving on, let's keep going with this.
Yeah.
You come on, you're on a tear, girl. You're like the information fountain on this guy.
I already talked about it. His favorite themes, you know, he mostly did a lot of painting and collage with surrealism, Southern folk art. Those were a lot of big influences on him. He was also greatly concerned about a lot of different injustices which played into his artwork, the Holocaust, Native American forced migration, all of those things were a focus. He didn't necessarily want to be pigeonholed as an activist artist, but a lot of his themes are closely connected to activism, so it's hard to separate it and not, you know.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we know how the artist and the work go hand in hand, right? I mean, we don't always have the luxury or the benefit, I should say, of having the artist and who they are present. But more and more now, we do. And so, when we know Benny Andrews and who he is and what he stands for and what he's done, and we see him in different situations, the work's context, it's there to begin with. I mean, like, we can approach his paintings and see what it is that he's up to, but knowing him, obviously, now all of a sudden it's impossible to even look at a portrait without, understanding who he is, right? So, I completely reevaluate things like, the ways in which he pays close attention to how carefully painted the background is in this versus this heavily textured sort of modeled clothing. There's also this thing he does where there is more attention paid to the coverings, the clothing, the pattern and the dress than to the faces themselves sometimes, right? So it's like this kind of, is it a disguise? Is it a place to hide behind? For a lot of the portraits, and some are more evident than others. But once you see it, you can't not consider it in all the work. This one's a great one. I love this painting, and we're back to flags again for a moment. So Glenn's flag show, comes into thought here. But we think back about that boxer with the ropes, collaged into that piece, and then I come to this guy with the fighting fists in the air, and to me, there's like this really interesting, it's very hard to see in this, but there's a collaged or almost assemblaged stick that divides the fist from the flag. It's painted the same stripes as the flag, so I don't know how clear your image is right now, but it's a barrier. Right? And so he's on one side. The painting's divided by that barrier, right? The stripes themselves are the barrier. And he stands there, fists in the air. I love how that paint bleeds out from the edge line, drips off the bottom. It creates that action into, this physical fight, right? So the movement of him in his, I want to say quadrant, but it's more like 2/3 of the painting is taken up by him. And there's this physicality to this fight. And the flags it's the same flag he's been painting all along. It's not perfect, but it's got this kind of beauty to it, right? It's got this kind of expression to it, and it's like he just can't get in there. He just can't get into that space. Hi, Gary Palker, good to see you. Has a Leon Golub sort of feel? Oh my God, totally. This is totally like Leon Golub. Absolutely, I love that reference. So yeah, I think that some of these more politically charged ones for him are really quite successful. Here's the one, No More Games, that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, well, this is a pivotal piece. This is one of his best known works. Came out in 1970. No More Games. It was mostly about the plight of Black artists. That's kind of what it was, and I watched or listened to a really interesting podcast with Deborah Roberts, who's also she's an amazing collage artist. And she was, it was a June 2020, the Art newspaper interview. And the two were going back and forth on how they interpreted this. And the Black gentleman represents Black artists. And, we have a woman lying there. She's draped by the flag. There's some kind of feeling of violence there. A lot of symbolism going on, a lot of opening of interpretation. It's very big. This piece, the dimensions, I do have that written down. Hang on a second.
A lot of these larger panel pieces of his were monumental in size.
I know I have it here somewhere. I just have to find it. But anyway, many people viewed the woman as Lady Liberty, lying down, and he just had enough. And you can see in the shadows the way he's holding his hands. So much going on in that. I view her as there's a lump underneath the blanket. So I'm like, is she supposed to be pregnant? Is it pregnant with something? And, is like, what's going on? There's a pillar in the back with this thing wrapped around it. It's fleshy. It's also draped by the flag. So
I see the pillar in the background as being Lady Liberty's, torch hand, and the torch is gone. The light's gone out, and the light is almost passed over to the side of the black, the Black artist, right? And so the line that divides these two paintings, which is not by accident, it's not because he had two panels that just he needed to use. there's a physical division in the space, right, that keeps him out of that space. And the light has moved over to that side. So, I think there's both this sort of very telling, ominous thing here, but also maybe a hopeful thing. And this is kind of what I was talking about before with his works and how they kind of face these two different things. I think his activism and the message he was trying to send carried with it that belief that, that he could make change, right? And so, to me, that partially has that here. Ben says, I noticed that each one looks like it was done by a different artist. It's amazing. Yeah, well, he does. His style. And if you go on his website and scroll down through the paintings, each decade, there's some really serious change in these. So, I love this piece. And I get why it was one of the big ones for him.
It is at the MoMA right now. That's where it's permanently housed. It's 101 inches by 101 inches. 2 panels, oil on canvas and collage.
Yeah. So for math people, it's like 8 foot by 8 foot.
That's
a big piece.
Painting. Yeah.
So we'll cycle through some more here as we kind of move along through these. And, again, the range of style, which is what Ben was pointing out, is really quite staggering in some of these. Some are not afraid to show a blatant ugliness, right? And I think that's actually really a powerful thing.
I do want to point out one other event that really charged him, and that was in 1968 to 1969. The Met had a show called Harlem on My Mind, and it attempted to show African Americans and to advocate for equality and justice, and it featured a lot of media representation of African Americans, but one thing it totally failed to do was to have artists, African American artists
in the show.
And this was outrageous. So Benny Andrews and many other people really spoke out against that and protested it. Alice Neal joined in that protest as well.
Yep.
And that was another triggering thing for his artwork, and they demanded it be taken down and all of that.
Pumpkin Audrey wants to know, could these paintings be Vietnam related? Well, Benny Andrews was in the Korean War.
He was in the Korean War. He served during that time, but he's also making these paintings in the late 60s, early 70s.
So it could be.
So it could be related.
Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely present at the time. This is a fantastic. I love this portrait. I love the wrinkles in the physical wrinkles in the collaged fabric, and how they sort of throw off that blatant flatness in the arms down below, the flatness in the background, and then there's this other thing going on completely with Mark making brushstroke in the face. So there's this real sort of delicious kind of contrasting mark making and tactility to this whole thing that's just stupendous. But yeah, so here's a great example of one of these massive panels. Now, I don't have the info on this one handy, but this one, and you're gonna pull that up, I know. A lot of his drawings, which we'll get to in a little while, were studies for these in individual pieces. So each one of these you look across the 4 panels and you can see 4 distinct vignettes that take place across that space. And he would really study out some of these little individual vignettes before combining them into a larger painting.
This is part of the Bicentennial series. This one is entitled Trash 1971, Oil and Collage on Canvas, 10 by 28 feet.
10 by 28 feet. 28 feet. So you're talking about a 7-foot distance on each of those panels. 10 by 7. Monstrous. And to me, we can marvel at size, right? And we can be like, wow, that's really big. But I think what bigness does, what this size does, is its monumentality. When you stand in front of it, it overwhelms you.
It does.
Right? And so the strife in this, the struggle in this is not something that we become intimate with. It is something that is, over and above us and dominates us. Twombly would be proud. Yeah, I love that. That's actually really, it makes me immediately think of, all of a sudden now I'm in the Philadelphia Museum looking at the Twombly paintings and how massive they are. that's a good. I want to think about that one a little bit because I'm like, I immediately realized that makes sense, but now I'm like, wait a minute, let me think about this a little bit. You're saying sorry. Why are you saying sorry? So, I feel like some of these, and he's got a few of these, like when we get into, just size wise, when we get into this decade, he's got like 4 of these, and that's it. In a whole 10-year period, he's got like, John Park says, it's interesting because it works as a small image on a screen as well. Something I always view as a positive about a good photograph.
And actually, if you take the panels apart and you were to just show them individually, the meaning would change too, because I'm looking at each individual panel without the context of the other ones. There's also a story in each one as well.
Well, sure. Take the rightmost panel of this one, and the man is pulling on these two what? We don't know what they are without the rest of it.
Yeah, what's he struggling? The struggle's unknown. There's the shadow there.
But the struggle's still there.
The struggle is still there.
So they can function individually. And I like John's comment also about how, as a small image, and this is one of the limitations we face in this kind of broadcast, is that it's really, really hard to convey that sense of scale. And so, we kind of really have to over talk it. And still, you're not going to really see that, right? But that's a good point. I think I have another one of those here. Yeah, this is another pretty large one. What was this one called again?
This one's called Circle. It's also 10 by 24 feet oil and collage on canvas. It was created in 1973.
Right. So this is this period in the 70s. I mean, this one's really haunting. This whole circle of people around this bedridden figure, gashed open in the chest, almost like sacrificial.
Yes.
The line work in this and the way the lines all sort of run towards that bed, it kind of reminds me of Renaissance painting and how, oftentimes orthogonals ran towards like the Christ figure or, the sort of radiating halo, all pointed towards one face. And all of this circle kind of points towards this sacrificial bedridden figure. It's really quite disturbing.
It's very disturbing.
This bothers me. He's like a black Max Beckman. These are great. These are great comments. We should get a Max Beckman painting up here and a Leon Golub painting up here. These should have been references I had. It's too bad I can't send the contents of a show out to all of you beforehand, so I could be like, all right, what else do I throw in this? Because these are all great references. This is another fantastic one. Just straying a little further into the surreal now.
Yep, this one's called Sexism from 1974. It is 10 by 24 feet as well, oil and collage on canvas.
Why is this called Sexism?
Well, if you look to the right, there's some very phallic-like and some very...
What's the opposite of phallic?
Yes.
Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that's exactly. And then you've got this figure shrouded in white, and you can't quite tell the gender.
Can I make this bigger for a second?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to really mess up our slideshow, but I really want to make this bigger for a second. Hold on a minute.
We want to find out why it's called sexism.
Amanda says it really pulls you in.
It's almost like a half of a uterus there up on that pedestal. Something's going on. Like, that's the closest thing. It's like a surreal half of a uterus and a bunch of phalluses.
I mean, I'm sorry to ask that question. I mean,
No, but when you're looking at art, you can ask those questions, even if what are we looking at here? That's I think people are scared to say that. I think some people feel like they should know what they're looking at, and they shouldn't have to.
Well, and I want everybody watching to know that we don't always know.
No.
And the question was,
what is this?
It's called,
let's look at it.
And it's called what? Sexism? Yes, it's called sexism. And so here's this female figure in the middle.
Is it female?
I don't know.
It's a gender neutral. There's hints of it being female but we don't know.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I guess the calf structure, but
it's a good question, and I'm actually intrigued by that. Like, I like the fact that I don't understand why it's titled the way it's titled. I do like the fact that it strays into this totally different realm of this weird kind of dreamscape But yeah, I got a hard time with this one.
Looking at these phalluses on the right, are they crowned with laurel leaves? Is that happening? Is there some kind of celebration? Yet there's these uteruses lined up on the side, and one is cut, but there's these ladders ascending into. This is awesome.
This is awesome.
And then this figure is weighted down in the center with the shroud. That's kind of, maybe it probably is a she. I mean, I don't really know.
Amanda's asking if those are people with hats on the left, and no, they're like these forms. They're like what? They're on the left. They're like these. They are people. Yeah, they are people with hats on. These big floppy hats. They're floating in on these weird, like stone-like forms. Very strange.
But very interesting. So. And that's the good thing about talking about art.
Yeah.
You have stuff like this. And
Amanda says the hole on the right feels like it's being penetrated with arms.
Yeah.
I don't see the penises. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they're there. They're there.
Yes,
And they're not literal, but they're there. You know. So all right, so enough of this one.
Okay,
I mean, this is
so anyway.
Again, this is what makes Benny Andrews fantastic, is it's kind of like this real. It's really interesting to take apart sometimes, and other times it's just totally direct.
Yeah.
Oh, I said I was going to mess up the slideshow, and now this one's off the screen.
Okay.
So let's fix that.
We'll get right back to normal.
All right, so this is 6th Floor Walk Up. You wanted to talk about this one, didn't you? Did you say you liked this one?
I did like this one, but did I say I wanted to talk about this one?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Maybe you
probably did. So this was like a portrait as well. And I do recall somebody speaking about it and looking at it in this way because there's some kind of ominous foreboding sense of it. You have the portrait of the man, mixed media. You see the texture of the shirt, and he's looking to the side. He's got this little, the rope there, almost like a curtain, as if it's a stage or... But then he's kind of being framed in that object, and you look down with the perspective, and his feet are dangling, and you see the wooden plank, and you see the shadow emerge from behind him. And it looks victorious, or does it look menacing? So there's a lot of things going on in this one painting.
For me, a lot of these, if not all of them, really, really focus on a sense of place, right? I think Benny Andrews is really, really interested in or concerned with or focused on these figures' sense of place in their environment as he would be, right? Of course, given his activism, given what's going on in this time and now, sense of place. He's framed, right? Yeah. The figure-ground relationship in this is the weirdest, most awkward thing I've ever seen.
The perspective is just outrageous,
right?
Too.
So at every turn, we've got a situation that just doesn't quite work, and intentionally so, not in a naive way, but in a really sophisticated way. This man doesn't belong in any part of this, which is weird. It's like, what is that frame? What is that stairway behind him?
Right, and is it like a stage, or is it something... there's a lot going on, these double meanings. His hands, are they bound? I see something going on with the one wrist, Yeah,
Pumpkin Audrey's pointing out, is there a rope up top? There is.
There is a rope
and
up top.
The double meaning of all these ropes, right, is like also, it's terrible to say, but, the lynching aspect of this, especially in the way those ropes orthogonally came in on that boxer.
See, I think it's so interesting the way that even the curve of the rope is really interesting to me because
John Park nails it. John Park nails it. It's a stage. It's a gallows.
Yes, exactly.
It's totally a gallows.
Yes.
Unreal. That's exactly right, John. I love that reference. I mean, I don't love that reference, obviously, because of what it represents, but I think you've nailed it on this one.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in his paintings.
Yeah, his hands are bound. I mean, there's so, this is, plus a 6th floor is called 6th Floor Walk Up. No one wants to live in a 6th floor walk up.
Right, but is it 6 steps up? I don't know.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe.
I don't know.
You mean a gallows meeting? Yeah, it could be.
Maybe that's
it could
what
be.
It's referring to.
Aspect of this, especially if there's a lot of colors, are amazing here. Sorry, got some of your comments at the front. Yeah, it's I really like what's being said about these now, and I really like the way all of a sudden, I got to tell you guys something. This chat room, and we come to this sometimes with we've got the notes about the history, dates, places, times. Then we come to it kind of like Terri says to me, she's like, "Do you make any notes about this?" I'm like, "No." Because I just, I feel like all of you, and what we're typing in this chat, the imagery that we're looking at, and the factual information that we're pulling from these notes, we really come up with, I really love the way this all comes together. And I really appreciate the way all of you contribute to this. I mean, this is fantastic for me as well. And I feel like I learned so much about these artists through what we all share. Amanda says 6th floor walk up gives me bad memories. Yeah, I mean, that would be. I had a few friends that lived on a 5th floor walk up, and it was just like, oh God, do we have to go up to your place? I don't want to go. It's like, so let's keep moving because we're bouncing around a little bit here,
This looks like it might be another one of those
much larger surreal pieces.
I'm just trying to find it here.
4th was bad enough. All right, I'm just going to be going with 63 from now on instead of 908-252-9360. I'm just going to be like 63 says, yeah, it's a great interaction, 63. And 4th was bad enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting how the window frame is like hanging so it's uncomfortable. Yes. So this next piece is Utopia in 1975. Same-ish kind of dimensions, 10 by 20 feet. Oil and collage on canvas. Utopia.
I'm cruising right now because I think there's this, like I don't.
One thing I can't help but notice is this the white background. I mean, it's so prominent in all of his pieces. It's like he's got this very busy area with the figure and the texture and all this stuff going on, and all these compositionally he keeps that pure background there, or just a little bit off color. I don't know if it's pure white, but he keeps this background here.
Part of what that does, I feel, is that it creates a non-space, right? It sort of negates the ground. And so you have these figures that are hovering in this undefinable space, which, from a form meets content point of view, it's almost perfect, right? It's like that sort of seems to be the appropriate space.
And the other thing that we see quite a bit is the sun that hovers in some of these compositions. I'm saying sun, but this orb, this
ball. Yeah, we've seen this in a couple of them. Yeah. I love this. This is like, talk about this weird combination of flat meets textured meets space meets non-space.
And to describe skin.
Yeah, it's such a strange piece. Really isolate. Yeah, 63 says really isolates the subject. It's such a bizarre thing. And then that hole in the ground. It's almost as if it's almost like this slide was perfectly poised to go with what we were just talking about. I didn't plan it this way, I swear to you. But it's like, okay, well, let's negate the ground. But if that's not clear enough, let's really negate the ground. Let's put in the ground. Let's put a hole through. And have that sort of non-space showing through the hole to sort of toy with you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Ben says, every one of his paintings stands alone from the next. All of them are original. Yeah, well, that's the other thing, Ben, is that there's this standalone quality to these pieces in one respect, but then there is this way in which they all come together in those larger panels where they have the ability to stand alone and function as a larger whole, which is another feat. That I really quite like. Are any of these self-portraits, Pumpkin?
There are self-portraits. I don't think we've seen any yet.
They're in here. I'm actually going to start to move a little bit faster because I don't know where I am. Oh,
this is a good one.
This one. Let's talk about this one.
Let's talk about this one. I don't know the proper name of this one. Is it just
Marcel?
Yes. Is that it? So this is a portrait.
It's a portrait of Marcel Duchamp.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting choice for someone like Benny Andrews to make. But you really wanted to talk about this one. Did you have something? Because I don't want to run over you.
No, I didn't have.
No.
No, I didn't have anything.
Okay, so this to me is such a strange painting of Marcel Duchamp in so many ways. So can we pull up the year on this one? It's on that list right there.
It is. I don't know if it's on this one. We're in the collages here. The Bicentennial series. Let me just go over here.
It's coming up. It's in. You can go into paintings, and
I'm actually just on the bennyandrews.com website.
right. Go down.
You can find out all about his work.
This is going to be, I
It's run
think,
by
in the
States.
80s, right?
I'm looking.
Yeah,
yes,
there he is.
1985.
So this is 85. Now Duchamp died in 68.
This is 50 by 36 inches, oil and collage on canvas.
Yes, the tie is physically collaged on the canvas.
It's a real tie, and that's one of the things that he is known to do. He does take elements of what that fabric had been and incorporates it into the painting.
Yeah, 63 wants to know what was their interaction, right? And this is what I'm curious about. Is number one, did Benny Andrews ever meet Duchamp? Which I
I don't know.
I mean, of course, we've got elements of surrealism in Benny Andrews' work, right? He was definitely alive when Duchamp was alive. I would imagine that the connection to possibly some of no, that's a stretch. I'm going to hold back. Your guy last week was a tie guy. That's right. Mike Rader was a tie guy.
He was.
I don't think Mike Rader's watching tonight. I think he's in transit right now.
Yeah.
I'd like to get his take on this, but that's a really good point. But Marcel Duchamp's face in this is primarily covered. So my take on this would be the following: is for the latter half of Duchamp's life, he sort of went into confinement. He decided to leave the art world. He said he abandoned everything and disappeared into his studio while he worked for about 20 years making Le Tantanet, right? And basically said that this was to be given to the Philadelphia Museum after my death. Okay? And so what he does is he leaves the world with this conundrum, which is he denounced painting very early on in his career. He stops painting. He says he's not going to be a painter. But then he makes a sculpture that is a sculpture of a painting.
Yes.
Right? If the two worlds could be combined any better, I don't even think that could possibly happen. But he did it in this kind of reclusive state. So in this Benny Andrews piece, I wonder if Benny Andrews' sort of connection to an artist's lack of space, or what's the word I'm looking for here? There's this kind of, Benny Andrews in his activism is talking about an artist's sort of inability to. Duchamp hated to go to his own openings. He hated to show his work. He did not like that aspect of his life, right? And I wonder if there's a connection there. I wonder if they felt some kind of affinity towards one another, if Benny felt it towards him. But there was this kind of reclusiveness that Duchamp sort of placed himself in. And there was a brilliance about that work. And so I'm interested in the way Benny Andrews portrays Duchamp as being mostly like this covered mask of a face with just one eye showing through. That object in the lower left hand.
Even the flesh tones are really obscured. He doesn't go all out on the flesh tones. There's a lot of gray areas.
Right.
Like, literally.
63 says, yeah, that was a pose. He was playing the market during those years. Yeah. He was, he had just started to come into, before he pulled that move and disappeared, he just started to come into a real sort of known sense of fame, right? Like outside of that small niche of conceptualism that probably, had a very academic kind of following. Another thing Duchamp was sort of opposed to, right? Duchamp was totally opposed to the academy as a place to learn to be an artist. That being said, there's hints of, in that piece on the lower left, that segmented curved object, there's hints of that one section of the bride strip there by our bachelors, the large glass, which is what the show is named after. There's like a part of that almost seems to be present there. But I can't, I'm really having a hard time putting all of that together. It's a fascinating piece, right? So, okay, so here's the mind-blowing part for all of you out there. I went on Artsy, which is this app you can get for your phone and follow all these like famous artists and find out when their work comes up for sale. this piece is for sale. Like this is up right now for sale from a gallery. And we were just like, not that we could ever buy something like this because this is probably worth what our house is worth. But oh my God, I just think, oh my God, that's somebody could have that in their presence, and I go nuts. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going.
I was trying to look up what the meeting was, like if there was any interviews with Benny Andrews as to why,
if they ever got together, or
why he might have chosen to,
Yeah, well, 63's question about what was their interaction was, I think that's a good one. Mm-hmm. Here's one of the ones that you wanted to talk about. I know that we're kind of starting to run out of time.
Yeah.
But
I really enjoyed this piece. That's all.
I love this piece.
I hadn't wanted to talk about it specifically. I just thought it was a.
Well,
nice
I would like to talk about it, actually. I think this painting really beautifully sums up the way in which Benny Andrews composes some of these paintings, and he does it very masterfully in this one, where each field of definition, like the orange table, the flesh-colored wall, the shawl on her shoulders, and the way that bleeds into the white of the blouse, the pattern of the stars, every single area is a distinct area of choice. Each flower even, right, is very sort of shapely, or really about shape, I should say, not shapely, and sits in its own distinct region. And somehow she disappears in that. She doesn't disappear, she's there, right? But she is not the thing we look at first.
You don't think so?
I mean, I do and I don't, right?
I see, the first thing that I look at is what's around her neck, and that brings me to her. That honestly was the first thing that I was drawn to. This is called Portrait of a Black Madonna in 1987. It's 36 by 48 inches, oil and collage on canvas. I thought that was probably the what he did there with the neck piece, and then with, of course, the design elements, that orange flat plane, and the way that he isolated these flowers. And I can't quite pin the expression on some of his figures, because it almost looks like either she's pondering, or it's indifference, or she's not interacting with the flowers that are in the painting.
Well, she's gazing off canvas,
plane,
right?
So it's a disconnected sensation when you look at it. So I just thought it was the palette I really enjoyed. There's a lot of things I liked about this painting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love this painting. I mean, Gary Palker says, yes, the color's so well isolated. And I think that's, what does it for me is there's this kind of segmentation. There's a vividness to the color in the table and the flowers, the shawl, and even weirdly, the plainness of that back wall that have this kind of dominance that, with given her gazing off the canvas, I mean, I think that's why I said that, right? 63 says, almost Matisse-like, but definitely his own. Yep. And Pumpkin Audrey points out, and her arm. Is she pregnant?
She very well could be. It is called The Portrait of a Black Madonna. So,
right.
That's what I'm guessing.
Some of these portraits with the flat background and interesting colors remind me of Amy Sherald.
Yeah.
I wonder if he might have been an influence of hers, conscious or not. Jess, sorry. That's a great point. And I really think that's I wish we could ask her.
Well, it very well may have been. I remember when we did the show, she had seen very few Black artists when she was growing.
She had to encounter him.
Right. So when she went for college, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, my guess is she tried to find more, and I'm almost positive that there was some kind of
that this would have been
there,
an influence.
Because she was so voracious to find more Black artists out there.
Right. Right. Memory Vessel says artsy, and I think what she's referring to is there's a group that Memory Vessel belongs to called Artsy, but not artsy like the app. So just to point out, it's ARTSY for those of you who might want to download that app and use it. It's actually really quite good. I've done auctions on there before and bought work through there. So if you're thinking about collecting, Not a bad way to go. Portrait of Neen Humphrey.
Oh.
Right? So
I don't think I saw this one.
yeah, this is how I freaked out. I was like, wait a minute. I know Neen Humphrey. Neen Humphrey, are you watching?
Does this look like her to you?
No. No. This doesn't look like anyone to me.
I was just...
I would be worried if I was Neen Humphrey and I'd wonder why this woman has no face. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But...
yeah, there's a lot to... like I said, there's a lot to unpack in his paintings.
Yeah, Glenn Lavertu's saying, whoa, Glenn, I want your take on this, pal. Because this one, I think, is really interesting to me.
Well, that's why I was saying if you recognized her at all in this.
I would have completely overlooked this if it hadn't been for seeing the title and then saying, wait a minute, can this be the same Neen Humphrey? Mm-hmm. And then I saw the year it was painted, and I was like, wait, I knew her then. Mm-hmm. How is it not, number one, knowing Neen, how did I not know she was married to Benny Andrews? Mm-hmm. But two...
they were married for a while. She was his second wife. 1986, they got married following his divorce, and he spent the rest of his life...
20 years with her. Yeah, that's a long time. Yep. John Park says, at Jess Park, yes. And she sparked a Matisse comment in me as well. Too many to marry 908 comment and yours. Yeah, okay, so everything's kind of coming together here. Jess says her eye and nose in the frame behind her.
Yes, up here.
Yeah, I know. So he kind of took that out and made a piece out of it, weirdly. Now, eyes and nose in his portraits are often really, really heavily defined.
Yes.
Right? There's like this real grit to them.
Oh, they're sculptural, too.
They are.
Very sculptural.
They are, and hers become a piece of art. So this is I think this is definitely like sort of maybe a tribute to her beauty, right? Or maybe a celebration of her features, maybe.
Yeah.
Pumpkin Audrey wants to know, are there any interviews with him?
Yes, there are. If you can find them, on YouTube. There were a couple. He talks a lot about finding some of his programs, mostly, and talking about his art too. Yeah. A lot of stuff on the Black Emergency Coalition.
Glenn Lavertu says,
Cultural Coalition.
She wasn't our favorite teacher. Well, I wasn't gonna say that.
See, I don't look at this as a flattering portrait. Plus, he put her in like a high Renaissance kind of gown here. So there's almost something that he can't connect with.
But she's got this large text. She's got, to some degree, maybe.
There's something standoffish about it. You don't think?
He was with her for 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I kind of want to go knock on her door and be like,
I don't know if I would find that, I don't know if I would find this overly flattering.
If I painted you like this?
If I came across to paint it like, wow, what does this mean? Like,
what are you saying about me?
What are you saying about me? Like if you omitted my mouth or something like that. And I'm just joking here.
Yes, she can't see.
She can't see. She's lost some of her sensory organs. She's trying to read a book, but she can't see. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Glenn is not holding back. Glenn says she was insufferable for 1 year. We got to move on. We're going to get in trouble. We're going down a rabbit hole here.
This is a cool portrait. I like the rule of thirds. You got him all the way down at the lower thirds. And again, there's that big vastness of the canvas there that's untouched.
And his head is part of that vastness, which is weird, right? He kind of is like, the ground and him are like sort of merging on some level. We're going to keep on rolling here.
Oh, this is beautiful.
So here's a still life, which is, and now we're in a whole other region of
And he's got like all these little collaged elements that are almost like miniature paintings that form this floral kind of arrangement.
Yeah. John Park's typing again. The colors here are amazing, but he's talking about the one before this, I'm pretty sure, because he was typing that as we were on this, right? And then all of a sudden we land here, and it still holds true, right? But we're in a completely different realm of color usage. Yeah. So, this guy, I want a catalog of this guy's work because I can't get enough of these pieces.
I like how varied it is through his career too.
Right.
Like you really see the different evolution of process.
Yeah, so Audrey, or I should say,
I love this one.
This is a good one.
I forgot what this one is. Homeless. And all the different textures he used, like wrappers, and discarded items. But I absolutely adore this. The painterly quality of the grip on the handles, but then he just kind of draws in the face a little bit,
because
disguises it.
Because the face is invisible.
Yes.
Right? And this is true of homeless people. Right, we see them as this other thing, and I love how this starts to get towards the drawings, right? So Benny Andrews drawings are like this. They're linear. They're like those blind contour drawings we did in art school. Don't lift the pen off the paper. Don't look at what you're doing. They're very simplistic. Line is the key player in the whole drawing. Pumpkin Audrey, the face is so flat. Exactly. The face is not only flat, but it almost vanishes. And I'm hoping that I've got those drawings. Here's the Harlem piece. We're gonna see those drawings in a few minutes. But I know that this was one that you loved as well.
There were so many I loved, and then
we can't we're at 9:20.
This is Harlem, USA.
This is Harlem, USA.
Yes.
And this is later in his life now. We're into the 2000s here. Right, so we're much further on. This is one of the last pieces he was working on before he died, and so I think that
it goes all over his canvas that time. We actually see the sky.
It's like a full. It's a full painting, right? Rather than leaving these areas of blankness. But here are the drawings I was talking about, and I really, really love this work. So there's like this kind of very minimal linear approach, but the volumetric kind of space that he creates with the way that, I'm gonna call it a leg, but the way that leg wraps around that vertical form, there's a volume there as that sort of recedes back and around that form that is just beautiful. And it comes from that intersecting line where I guess we'll call it a calf and thigh for lack of a better description. Are there connections with other Black artists?
There are. I'm not going to be able to name all of them, but he created organizations that were sounding boards and gave a voice to Black artists, especially since they were so underrepresented in art. Like the coalition that we keep talking about, that was the big thing. But he was with quite a few of them.
Yeah,
In protest.
And I'm trying to remember. I read a whole piece that was about that protest, and now I'm totally blanking. Thank you, Hazy IPA, on some of those names. Yeah. But 63, I will try and remember those if I can. So just to touch on, I think I have 4 drawings here, and then that's the total end of this slideshow. But I love this notion of how here's a guy who spends so much time in his paintings with this, this sense of play, the sense of experimentation, the sense of tactility, the sense of space, and then he moves over to a drawing. And there is this very one-to-one, hand-to-paper linearity that still defines that kind of awkward space. And in some respects, the spatial relationships between figure, ground, objects in his drawings are more easily hashed out or more successfully hashed out than they are in the paintings, which is so weird for something this simple. So so immediate. Exactly. There's like this kind of, and if you look closely at these, a pen never lifts from the paper. It is one continuous line that moves through this. Is he crying? I think he is, Pumpkin Audrey. Like there is this mark on the face there that I kind of took to be that. I love that massive foreshortening of that glove there.
I love that object in the background too, because again, it's open for interpretation. Is it like
punching bag?
A punching bag? Is it a bag of belongings? Is it strange fruit? You
Right.
know, like a Billie Holiday reference? Is it there's a lot of things going on with that one drawing.
Yeah. So, again, I think the drawings are just a really interesting way to end this show because there's a greater presence in the absence that is taking place on this page, I feel, than maybe in the paintings. And I've always been one that gravitates more quickly towards the drawings, but that's just,
Yeah.
So Ben says, is it a speed bag? Yeah, that's definitely, could be, one of the references in there. John says the negative space and lack of single point perspective in both the drawing and especially those large ones allow him to play with unrealistic size differences and not have the viewer question it. God, yeah, exactly. Especially the ways in which space is manipulated in some of those massive panel pieces, right? Because you've got very tiny figures, very large figures spread out across a long distance. And that all of a sudden to us just gets interpreted as, distance or space rather than this weird shift or this naive shift in scale. Like it's a more brilliant shift in scale. So 63 says less is more. Yeah, no, in this case, right on the money. This is a study for one of those larger panel pieces. And, again, I feel like in some respects I get a lot more out of this. So, and I think that is the last one I have. We're back to the beginning.
Yes.
Wow, we went on forever on this guy,
did.
but man,
he's amazing.
He's fantastic.
And you should go check him out on your own. There's a lot of awesome podcasts on him. Like I said, Deborah Roberts did one with him. There's tons of them on YouTube. He has the one website which features the stuff from his estate, bennyandrews.com. So much to see and say and look at. He's amazing.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight.
Yeah.
And we want to thank all of you, obviously, for really making an awesome, lively chat. That was really a lot of fun. And I feel like we really got something out of this.
Yeah.
So listen, next week, Double Parlor. We're going to have them live in the studio, which we're excited about.
So excited.
And, I talked earlier about how we're going to be giving away the Susan Stillman painting when we get to 200 followers. Well, how do we get to 200 followers? You can help us with that. Spread the word. Tell a couple of friends to come watch next Tuesday night. They're going to learn about some sculpture that's actually really engaging and I think really easy to love and talk about.
Ask them questions. You can look them up ahead of time. Think of things that you want to ask them. This is your chance to talk to them.
Yeah, so
I love that.
Everybody's saying great show, love his work. Pumpkin Audrey, what a great show. Thank you. John Park, fantastic show. Thanks for introducing this artist. Ben says this was one of the best shows so far. Thank you for that. Love this show. Thank you from Jess Park. You guys are all fantastic.
Yeah, really.
And so come see us next week. Bring a couple of friends, and we'll get closer to giving you one of those Susan Stillman paintings.
Yeah.
All right, until then.
Tiny bit left.
Tiny bit left. We got a cool, exciting surprise for you guys next week that talks more about our on the road.
Yes.
All right, so we are out of here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care, everybody.